Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Broken Crayon Still Color Podcast. I am Tara, your host, and today I have a special guest, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everyone, Brandon, her husband.
And on this special edition of Broken Crayon Still Color, of course, just celebrated Valentine's Day. I think it was Wednesday. So I thought it would be appropriate to have Brandon as a special guest to discuss the five love languages. So Five Love Languages is a book by Gary Chapman that I think we received while at a marriage seminar while we were
Yep,
engaged, I
while we
think
was
it was.
engaged. Hmm.
And so we read it. We found out what our love language was, and then we found out what each other's love language was. And so we're going to go through that on today's episode. The five love languages are words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, acts of service, and quality time. And we're going to kind of go through and talk about each of them. And then at the end of it all, we're going to discuss what ours is and then how we reciprocate love to each other based on what our love language is. Um, so I will start with, well, it's mine, but it's actually the first love language, which is words of affirmation. I am a wordy person, thus
Hmm.
meaning I love words.
Hmm.
With words of affirmation, that is, I would say, maybe 50% of mine because I'm starting to realize I'm bilingual. I have another one too. But with words of affirmation, that one is basically you are telling your spouse how much you care for them, love them. It's what it is, words of affirmation, kind of reassuring them, telling them when they're doing a good job, telling them that you're proud of them, saying you look nice. Anything dealing with words is words of affirmation. You are affirming the other person. Um, with this love language, though, of course, as I get older and reading about it, this love language can be abused. Especially if the person is just saying it because they know it's your love language and they're just saying what they think you want to hear. But another story for another day. So that is words of affirmation. You basically like receiving compliments and you like just to be reassured that you're doing what you're supposed to do, doing a good job, things like that. You want to take a second?
The
Or
second
you
one,
want to talk about words of affirmation at all?
um, well, words of affirmation, um, has always been kind of a struggle for me because the one that we're getting ready to talk about is actually my love language, is acts of services. So a lot of times you feel like if I'm showing you that I shouldn't always have to tell you. But that's one of the areas that I really had to grow in. So words of affirmation, and it wasn't the fact that I couldn't express myself in words. I just figured that my actions spoke louder than my words, but sometimes your actions need to speak in the same level as your words. So one can't overlap the other. They have to be harmonious, and so that way the message gets across. So that way your actions and your words are lining up in the same frequency, so that your partner can hear you. So
Well, that's right. You did struggle with that one. But I think words of affirmation may be hard for someone who is, of course, like you said, not good at expressing themselves or just
mhm,
not very a wordy person.
right.
So that one may be hard. I am a wordy person. Um, so that was a little easy for me. But anyway.
Yeah. So the second one is acts of service. And so with acts of services is basically what are you doing as far as services that you know that the other person, that your spouse, is going to appreciate. So it could be as simple as something as vacuuming the floor or picking up the kids from school. Anything that shows you actually doing some type of activity that primarily the other person would have had to do if you wasn't there. So that's kind of been my um, way of expressing my love, which was acts of services. I want to show her that um, I could cook. show her that, I can keep a house. I can uh, do all these things for her. If she's ever in a bind, I'm there. So I've always been a person that likes to serve. Um, Part of the reason why I got heavily involved in ministry in the way God aligned it. So that's kind of where I'm at for acts of services. So this one came absolutely natural to me, but I don't know if it does it come natural to you as far as acts of services.
Um, Acts of service is hard for me. Um, I am a stay in my lane type of person. Um, so as Brandon said, he struggled with words of affirmation for me. I struggled with acts of service for him. Most of the things that he does in his occupation, I know nothing about, um, or I can just can't do. But I think that one was a struggle for me because
Mhm.
with my love language being words of affirmation, if I tell you, I mean, I can show you, but to take these words and feel my love. So acts of service was a little hard for me because I think I didn't exactly know what you needed.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah. And we can come back to these two because that's really going to work as a good segue into um, certain aspects of not trying to express your love to your spouse based on your love language.
Right.
So the third one was receiving gifts, and this one is not necessarily making you materialistic or only worrying about what you can get in your hand, tangible things. It's just the thought behind what you gave. So, if for instance, if she was saying, "Who, I really could use uh, what's that thing you get from Starbucks? I can't remember.
Some of the frappuccino.
Yeah, frappuccino. Yeah, I'm not a coffee or hot tea connoisseur. So if she was talking about that, and then I came in and brought that to her, it's a receiving of the gift. So it's like it's not the monetary aspect of it. It's just the thought behind that you were listening to me. You took time to actually hear what I was saying, and you actually executed that. Um, and I think that for the most part, I tend to do this one often because I think that this is her, and that's another segue into some of these things because you're not always tied to one love language. You can be bilingual or trilingual. Or in her aspect, she tried to be all five in one sometimes. But but either way, I'm not gonna get in trouble today.
Mm-hmm.
It's Valentine's week, so I did good this week, so I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna end the week good. So with receiving gifts, like she'll say something, and she'll like, I got a taste for, a candy bar or something like that. So when I go to the store, like I remember, and I just grab her something and bring it to her. And I granted can't let Riley or Skylar see it at all
Right.
because then it becomes their love language. They eat it. Say, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that this is her secondary love language. She may agree to disagree, but I think as she gets older, that becomes more of something that really sticks out to her.
Okay. I will reveal with my second if he's right or wrong at the end of this. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yes, receiving gifts, like he said, does not necessarily mean that the person is a materialistic person. It's more of the thought behind the gift. Like he said, if somebody was just mentioning something in conversation and you just went out and got it for them, it shows that you were listening.
Right.
Now, for someone that receiving gifts is their love language, things like a missed birthday or a missed anniversary or something like that would be disastrous to their relationship.
Right.
Because it's just like, okay, you missed it. That's my love language and you missed it. So
Right.
like I said, I'll reveal if that's my second one later. So the next love language is quality time.
Hmm.
Nothing says I love you like spending time with the person you love. So quality time is, I would wrap it up and say, that is a love language where you're spending time with your spouse and there are no distractions, no TV, no phone,
Mm-hmm.
no kids. It's just you and your spouse. Now, granted, during the quality time, you can watch TV, you can do other things, but it's just the time
Mm-hmm.
together that kind of drives the love, so to speak. Um, it also means sharing quality conversation.
Right.
So just talking about life, talking about your career, talking about, where you see yourself in the next 5 years. That is all wrapped up into quality
Mm-hmm.
time. Now, with quality time, of course, with adulting, kids,
Mm-hmm.
just other obligations,
Right.
this is probably one of the love languages that get neglected the most, in my opinion. For someone where this is their love language, just because of time restraints. But quality time is still very important to a person, um, where this is their primary love language.
Mm-hmm. Um, I think with quality time, I was matter of fact, it was right after we got married. Might have been a year after we got married. I was listening to a radio program. I think it was William O. Jr. And if it wasn't, I'm sorry. But he was talking about how it's important for a husband and a wife that as soon as they get in from their day to day things that they got after they did went to work, after they did the chores and all that stuff and got home, that it was important for like that first 10, 15 minutes of you first getting home, lock in on that quality time and ask how each other's day was. So I know for us, we have become very intentional in doing that. And even if we know we're not going to be able to do it by the time everyone gets home, because you got other responsibilities, you got kids involved now. So usually a call after you get off of work to kind of have that quality time, have that one-on-one to connect, to make sure that you're always engaged, so you know what the challenges and the joys of that person's day, and vice versa. They know yours. So being strategic and being deliberate and having that quality time, whether it's first thing in the morning before the kids get up, or as soon as you get home while the kids are kind of winding down, or even right before you go to bed, always have that 10-15 minute mark, to really hone in and put phones down, put devices down, turn the TV off, and really just talk about how each other's day was, because you really don't realize how much that 15 minutes can save an entire week of frustration, because sometimes your spouse wants to talk to you about their day, but they feel like they hadn't had a chance to, because they've been pulling this direction, pulling that direction, and then they get home, you're now pulling them into another direction as they're responsible as a husband, as a spouse. Then that can turn into them lashing out because they hadn't had an opportunity to vent, to get some things off of them, to get that pressure off them of what happened throughout the day, and knowing that they're able to confide in you without you automatically saying, "Oh, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do that." Like, you took time to say, "Hey, how was your day? What's going on? Talk to me." And then once they're able to release that, now they become a better person of service to you. So that's one thing that I really took into consideration, after I heard it on the broadcast, and we try to do that every single day. Not always successful, but we do try to do it every single day. And so the last one, am I taking this one?
Mm-hmm.
Is physical touch. Physical touch.
Physical touch does not always equate to sexual things.
I was getting there. I was just enjoying the moment. Physical touch.
Wanted to make sure to make that disclaimer.
This is a legal touch.
Physical
This is a
touch.
biblical touch.
All right, biblical touch.
Undefiled.
Physical touch.
So, so this one I know for sure. And again, I know I was kidding earlier, but I know for sure that this is one of either her secondary or
a strong third is physical touch. She likes to be hugged. She likes to, a kiss on the cheek or a kiss, not necessarily full fledged and all that stuff that you do later on, but just the hug, the embrace, to sit there for a minute to kind of like you did with Riley when she was coming out the NICU. Was like that it's called the kangaroo
Kangaroo,
time.
yeah.
So it's like kangaroo time for an adult. Like you get a chance to actually feel your partner and touch your partner to let them know that not only am I here physically, but I'm here emotionally, because that physical touch has um, a great deal of emotional security.
Yes, and you are right. Physical touch is my number two. I am bilingual, so words of affirmation and physical touch. And I laughed about it earlier, but it doesn't always equate to anything in the bedroom. It's just a physical touch, whether it's a touch on the shoulder, touch on the back, um, just the pat, holding hands while out, anything that causes you to physically touch your spouse. This one is very important because I think anyway. And like Brandon brought up, while Riley was in the NICU, they encouraged us to, of course, come to the NICU, lay her on our chest, literally skin to skin. They call it skin to skin. And it was called kangarooing. And it was just an emotional moment. I know for me, I know for Brandon, when we did it with her, because it felt like we were connecting with her. Right. I was not able to hold her right after I had her. So doing that while she was in the NICU kind of made me bond with her better. Right. So physical touch is very important in a relationship. If this is your love language, of course, the opposite of that, if you are physically abused, this can be damaging to you because your love language is physical touch. So if the person is physically abusing you, of course, that can be destructive to the relationship. Right. It gives a sense of security almost, like, hey, I'm here. I'm here. How's it going? Whether it's a touch on the face, touch on the back, like I said, touch on the shoulder, holding hands, kiss on the cheek, anything like that. So this is my number two. It could be number one. What? it could it could be tied with words of affirmation. I'm not paying Brandon. We'll talk about that later. It could be tied with the number one with me sometimes, though. It just depends. But you are, of course, not locked into one love language. So one day it may be words of affirmation. Next day it may be physical touch. It just kind of bounces back and forth for me, I think.
Yeah, so physical touch.
Now with Brandon, I would think that his number two, if his number one is acts of service, Brandon's number two, if I had to, because his is a little different. Because of the time he has, I don't think it's quality time, but I would say that your number two is probably receiving gifts.
I guess I give it that.
Okay, well, no, it's not. If it's not,
I'll give it to you. It's between receiving gifts and actual quality time. Quality time was not something that I really understood at the beginning, but since I've been able to, because again, I get pulled in a lot of directions, just based on the nature of my work, nature of what I do in ministry. The times that now that I'm actually blocking off for times with my family, times with my wife, I'm starting to value that even the more, because those are moments that you can't get back. So yes, I like receiving little small gifts here and there, but the quality time has made a great push towards getting into number two. So if the quality time comes with a little gift of a physical touch, I'm sorry.
I
I'm
think
sorry. I'm
Brandon's
sorry,
might
y'all.
number two
I'm
might be
sorry.
physical touch. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I think he likes that
Oh
one.
man. Oh man, I ain't gonna never be back. I'm sorry. My bad. My bad. My bad.
So with the five love languages, of course, we're talking love languages.
Mhm.
With the five love languages, it's important to know what yours is.
Mhm.
Um, especially if you are single and
Right.
you do not have a spouse. It's important to know what yours is. I am the type of person that believes that sometimes, in some cases, people are not mind readers, right? So it is
Mhm.
very easy. People are not mind readers. It is very easy to fall into the nature of you showing another person a love language based on what yours is.
Right.
It's very easy to fall in that. Um, I think it's important to get to know the person's love language and then reciprocate
Right.
what their love language is to them. Love them in that way, not in the way you want to be loved.
Right.
That's unfair.
Right.
We all are individuals with different love languages. Now, if you come across a person or if you have a spouse where you guys share the same love language, that's awesome. I won't say in most cases that's not what's happening, but it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Reciprocated how they want it, not how you want it received, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So ways in which I try to meet Brandon's love language with it being acts of service is sometimes putting gas in his car. So I'll get the car, run an errand, fill it up with gas, maybe take it by the car wash. And that tends to speak to him. With what'd you say your second one was?
It's between receiving gift
Receiving gifts and
and
quality
quality
time.
time.
With receiving gifts, sometimes I'll periodically just, buy him a cologne, or I tend to stay away from anything related to the Dallas Cowboys, but periodically I'll spend my money and get him something related to his favorite sports team. With quality time, of course, like he said, in the morning, at night, it's kind of hard to kind of do quality time with kids, but you have to make time to do quality time.
Right.
If you have children and if you have responsibilities. But if this is something as simple as going to the grocery store together
Mm-hmm.
or riding around town together,
Right.
with that being his love language, of course, I try to speak to him in that way.
Right.
And how do you reciprocate mine? How would you say you reciprocate mine? I know how you reciprocated, but
What I do now is just at any point in time of the day, if she comes across my mind, I don't try to brush it off. So I'll send her a quick text and say, hey, checking in on you, hope all is well. And sometimes that's when she actually lets me know that she's having a bad day. So I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that we set up some additional quality time after she gets off work to kind of talk through her day or talk through a situation that she went through, because in the line of work that she does, sometimes it's not always physical taxing, but it can be mentally challenging, trying to deal with people with behavioral health issues, mental instabilities, and things of that nature. So it can mess with your stability as well. Trying to assist them to get them in the best frame of mind that they can be the best person or the best version of themselves. So I've learned that regardless of what time of the day that she comes across my mind, to send her a quick text or to send her something that I know is going to make her laugh, or kind of piggyback off a conversation that we was talking about, the night before, 2 nights before, something that I know that is going to bring her some level of joy and some level of being relaxed and kind of resetting. And sometimes there have been times I've actually recorded a prayer that I prayed for her over that day, just out of the whim, and then I guess it does work a little bit, right?
It does.
So I'm learning that you can never, with words of affirmation, you can never just rely on, oh, I said something yesterday. Oh, I gave her a Valentine's card the other day. So all my words are in there. No, like it doesn't have to be anything long or extensive. It can just be a simple, hey, how are you? You good? And even if I call her through the day, I can already tell based on her tone what kind of day she's having. And I was like, what's going on? And sometimes she'll try to brush it off. I'm okay. Like, you're not, but we'll talk about it later. And 9 times out of 10, there's something wrong. But that just goes into not only knowing your spouse's love language, but just knowing your spouse, period. Because if you don't know them, then you're trying to execute their love language is going to be a little hard because even though people have similar love languages, they like for it to be expressed differently. Mm-hmm. Every person is different. They may have a unique love language. Like you could have 8 women that have the love language of words of affirmation, but if you don't know your spouse and the words that actually will move her, or the things to say that would actually, get her attention, mm-hmm. it serves you no purpose to know that love language, and you're not executing because you don't know that wife or that husband intentionally and individually. So,
yeah. And I think with words of affirmation, as it pertains to me, like I said, I love words. I'm wordy. My text messages are long. I love words. Mm-hmm. I love to read. I love literature, English, poetry, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I feel like one of the best ways to express yourself is by words. So sometimes with words of affirmation, you may say, oh, okay, I'm going to tell my spouse I love them. If that's their love language, telling them you love them is fine, but explain why. Like, mm-hmm. I love you because. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it can be abused, right? Because words, anybody can come up with anything to tell you, mm-hmm. if this is your love language, and you may fall for it, right? But on the positive side of words of affirmation, right. This can really speak to a person. It's not that you're just feeding them when you're actually going into details of why you like something they did, or why you love them, why you care for them. If they accomplish something, telling them, good job, I'm proud of you, mm-hmm. keep up the good work. Sometimes when I feel like I am looking like a monster, Brandon will be like, you are really beautiful. And sometimes I get a little schoolgirl grin on me because I'm like, but
at least the physical touch.
But just threw me off. But it means something. And sometimes, especially when I was pregnant, and that was when the time I felt my roughest. He would just, he'll be staring at me, and I'm like, you pregnant, got an attitude. What are you staring at? He's like, you are beautiful, like you, and that it just did something. Mm-hmm. So with words of affirmation, of course, I feel like with that one, it doesn't, if you really care for someone, it shouldn't take you, out of your comfort zone to express why. Right. With receiving gifts, of course, that doesn't always mean you're materialistic. That just means, hey, you mentioned that you liked coffee, or you mentioned that you like basketball. I got us these tickets. You mentioned that it's just listening to them intently, and just sporadically just bringing them something that they enjoy, something that they like. It shows that you're listening, right. Really. With physical touch, of course, Brandon's favorite. That one, of course, just a small gesture, hand on the knee, hand on the shoulder, forehead kiss, kiss on the cheek, just showing them that you're there and you care, really. Acts of service, going out of your way to provide a service to relieve some type of pressure off of that person. Mm-hmm. If they've been running, maybe they worked late, or maybe they I don't know, have been running errands all day and just say, "Hey, I know you usually do the laundry, but I did the laundry today."
Right.
Or, I saw you running, you looked exhausted. I went ahead and prepared dinner and got the kids ready for bed. Just going out of your way to provide a service that they usually do
Yeah.
um is a good way to show acts of service. Did I forget any of
Um.
Where's information receiving gifts? Quality time, of
Yeah.
course, making time for your spouse, whether it be an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes, just a time where you do not have anything else distracting you and it's just you and them, going out on dates. Anything like that can contribute to quality time. Um, After this show, we will have the five love language quiz in the comments for you to take to find out what your love language is. And like I said at the beginning, it's important to know what your love language is if you're not with someone or if you're with someone,
Mhm.
because a love language just is not um, confined to a romantic relationship.
Right.
A love language can be used in just a regular friendship,
Mhm.
you know, relationship with your family, anything like that. It's important to know the people that you deem as your friend. It's important to know their love language, so that you know how to be the best friend to them.
So yeah. Yeah. And last thing I would say is that don't be alarmed if your love languages are changing or evolving
Mm-hmm.
as you evolve. So it's very seldom that your primary love language will change, but also welcome those other ones, because based on wherever you are in life, the other ones may be just as important as your primary love language.
Mm-hmm.
So be willing to evolve as an individual and allow your spouse to evolve as well. So that way you don't it's not always going to be a place that you can be predictable. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she just need words of affirmation. No, she may need quality time at that point. That doesn't necessarily mean that quality time is more important than overall words of affirmation. But the thing is, as you grow and as you learn each other, you realize that there's sometimes that there's going to be one that's needed more than the other, and it also depends on how have you received love growing up. And that's one of the things that I was listening to when we was reviewing for this session. It was
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes your love language is developed based on how love was portrayed to you as a
Mm-hmm.
child. So your primary love language may just be based on how things was done as a child, but you as an adult now, living your own life, those things could evolve. So just be willing. Don't be so closed in within the box. Like I believe you said that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Be confined to just one level of love language. Like explore all of them, because you're going to need to either receive that or be able to provide that for your particular spouse, or even if it's not romantic, just
Mm-hmm.
could be humanitarian. Like what what can you do for that person that needs some type of philanthropic um, act from you? Is it going to be an act of service, or do they just need you to listen, and as they talk about what brought them to this difficult time in their life? So it's not always going to be based on romance. I know we're doing the Valentine's Day kind of addition here, but just everyone needs love,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's agape, whether it's eros, or all the other different uh, forms of love. But be willing to actually grow with that person, grow with your community, grow with your friends, and know exactly what they need. Because everyone needs love. It just all depends on where they are in life, and what form of love they need. And you have to be able to speak their language in that time that they can most hear it. So
And I would think that a relationship, whether romantic or not, incorporates all five love languages
it
at some
does.
point in time.
It does.
Um, you probably need all five. You
Right.
may have a primary love language, like mine's is words of affirmation. But if Brandon never spends time with me and never gives me quality time, yeah, he can talk all day. He can give me words all day. That's my primary.
Mm-hmm.
But what else, is incorporated? And I think a positive and a successful relationship in any form incorporates all five. So
Absolutely.
I do thank you guys for joining us for this Valentine's Day edition of Broken Crayons Still Color. I thank Brandon for being my guest today and us kind of talking about it and talking it out. Of course, Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It is a good read, so I would definitely say that if you are in a relationship, want to be in a relationship, or just want to know more about love languages, I would definitely pick this up. Like I said, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, or wherever you get your books, it's there. He also has love languages for children, love languages for teenagers, just teaching parents how to show love to their children. I
Mhm.
think there's like a whole line of love languages specifically for men, love languages specifically for women. It's just a whole line. And so every book of his that I have read has been good. So definitely pick it up if you want to know more about love languages. And again, I thank you guys for joining us on this edition, this Valentine's Day edition of Broken Crayon Still Color. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks.